So, welcome back, everybody. We're going to get started now with the next session. So, I'm delighted to join our club, become a member, not just a hospitality buyer, sponsored by Triple Jump Technologies. Moderator is Roy Westwood, who is CEO at Forward Associates. And then next to him, we have Roy, who's CCO at Triple Jump Technologies. I'm not going to look down at the name because that'll confuse me. It's then Nils Braude from, I'm sure it doesn't need any introduction, from Twickenham Experience Ltd. And then last but not least is Andy Muggleton, who is Commercial Director at MCC Lord's Cricket Ground. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Katie. Good morning, everyone. Today's session, we're going to focus a little bit around the evolution of hospitality and the potential of taking that product a little bit further. I think our industry has gone through a phenomenal change over the last 10 years. And the product mix we now see in venues has phenomenally evolved. The interior design, the products, the concepts, they've all really moved forward from when I started in this industry or when most of us started in this industry. The question for all of us is, if we've all got these great spaces, these great products, how do we get our customers to connect on another level? Where can we take this further? And obviously the panel today are under no pressure to answer that question, but to throw some insight. Where do you see the evolution of hospitality going in terms of connecting with our customers? How do we take them further? How do we get them to feel completely connected with our brand or our venue or the game? Almost as a member. You know, we talked about the word member in many different contexts, but Andy, you've got debentures, you've actually got real members because you're obviously an official members club, so that probably throws a few more complications into the mix. But just give us a bit of an insight as to your thinking around how do we take that hospitality to another whole level.
Sure. Morning, everyone. Well, as you say, we've got best part of 25,000 members already who are our key stakeholders. They're first in our thinking. But we have many people who are passionate about Lords that we engage with. We have significant numbers of premium customers. But it is about a sense of belonging and how we can offer them things that make them feel like it's not a major match day transaction. We've got the assets there. We've got great facilities that we can be better utilizing. So we need to look at how we can connect with those individuals year round, how we can make our assets work harder for us, and that sense of belonging is something that we're striving towards. So, we've been exploring a number of different areas and opportunities and products that we'll be looking to launch, but it is that challenge of almost the two brands for us, one being MCC and the second being Lords, and how do you create a Lords membership that gives people a sense of being part of something, whilst a lot of the time it's very much, if there's a membership, it's MCC is the forefront. So it's going to be a fine balance, but we'll be launching some products this autumn for next summer that will be sort of creating a more member-driven experience for other customers.
And Nils?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't have the benefit of having a massive membership or a regular fixture list that members would come to. A good proportion of our business is stadium hires and external businesses coming in to use the venue. Clearly, we've got a massive debenture pool that forms a membership. It's how you tap into those groups for further spend. And hospitality at Twickenham, it's fairly aspirational, and to get people to form a membership to partake in that product on a regular basis is a tough ask. But I think it's time to start thinking outside the box a little bit, and working with other venues, and how do you create a membership across sport. And I picked this up just a few minutes ago. Do you go to some of the big membership cards, like Amex or some of the big concierge companies, and form a membership group across sport, and working with big hospitality providers and other agents, and together on providing access to premium buyers to buy into your venue and others, and not try and steal all the customers to you all at once, but provide a program of hospitality and sport and entertainment across a wider remit.
And for venues that are slightly different to yours, certain sporting venues who obviously would have fans that return on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, what about for them? Obviously, hospitality tends to be consumed on the day, and then when the game ends, you sort of get that lull before it's consumed again on the next game. Do you see any benefits in a membership program beyond the membership that we know, where it's a membership just as a right to buy, but true membership, truly knowing your guests, truly interacting with your guests? Do you see benefits for those clubs as well with membership programs?
Definitely. Yeah, we need to stay engaged, and I think there's a lot of learnings we've had over the last 18 months about how we can take the digital engagement forward, how we can create unique experiences and access to things for our members and our other premium stakeholders. So, as an example, we launched, as many people did, we all moved quickly, and an institution like the MCC is not used to moving quickly, so it forced us to think differently, and we launched a program for our members which provided virtual events and access to unique things. And I think as we come out of lockdown, as we go back into the live event arena, there's still a place for that, and there's still value that we can offer, as long as it is something that is sought after and premium and hard to access. So there's definitely ways that we can extend those relationships beyond just the match days.
Niles, anything to add?
Yeah, using technology to help enable that, and a lot of venues, and Twickenham being one of them, is launching the Twickenham Stadium app or venue apps to deal with your digital ticketing and your online journey. And you look to some of the bigger volume operators, someone like British Airways, that does exactly that. People only fly once a year, twice a year, and British Airways do it brilliantly. They've got a great loyalty scheme. They've got an app that works. They've got a ticketing system that joins the app that works across the world. And I think venues, particularly high volume venues or venues that have multiple events through the year, need to look to those operators and work out how to engage customers, keep them on your platform, keep the app in your phone, and then get people to engage into it. Newsletters, social media, and just providing content that keeps someone engaged, particularly if you have lull periods. Rugby is non-existent in summer months. How do you keep that level of engagement with your fans so that when you do go on sale, it's still in their mind, and you're not still thinking of cricket or someone else that's still on sale? So yeah, it's using that platform and then building a knowledge of your customers through that interaction to then talk to them about the right product, or rather than getting 10 emails a day or sending out thousands of emails, it's send much less quantity but much better quality to get that person and serve them up what they want to buy at the right time.
So in a way, and this was actually discussed in one of the panels yesterday, and we've discussed it obviously on our calls, in a way the physical world and the digital worlds are going to become a lot more embedded one with another. Obviously, game day will obviously be driven a lot more by physical with an element of digital, but non-game day, our opportunity is actually digital and technology and a way of engaging with our customers when they're not with us physically, but in a digital way. Roy, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's one of the most interesting challenges that we've seen over the past 5 years. So most people now recognize that you need beautiful spaces. We're in one today. You understand the relationship between the seats in the bowl and the spaces that you have here. But it all starts with asking the right questions and the strategy. And we just heard here that there's been a lot of work happening in terms of what are the products, the demographic, the analytics of all of that. We work with Andy and Niles and others around what we call as a concept the membership hub. The idea is that the first question is, what is a member? So everybody's got different tiers of demographics of customers. So is a debenture a member? Outside of the membership that you have as a members club anyway. Is a long-term buyer of hospitality a member? I would argue yes. And if so, how can we help to facilitate something that is interesting? So technology is an enabler. It's a solution only if there's a problem. So working and aligning it to the strategy and the business processes for the products that you want to do for being unique, all of you in the room are exactly the same way, is building those assets that we can automate a lot of those processes on the digital side to enable more time to spend physically with those customers, so you can extend things beyond that and sell additional products at a better price, at a higher profitability to do that. Then it's connecting all the different parts. Traditionally, we all bought silos. So we needed a ticketing system, and we needed a membership system, and we needed this, and we needed that, and nothing talked to one another, but the demographics changing, the age is going down. We need different ways of thinking about all of that, and hence the hub. And looking at some of the assets and being agile, so when COVID happens, you can do a digital platform and communicate with your people. If you want to digitalize your tickets, you can do that because there's flexibility in the way that you do that. And I think that's where we see a lot of investment right now, first of all, in strategic thinking, creating teams that actually work together to develop some of those platforms, that then you can turn it around, and the ROI on it is very fast. And one of the other things, that if I can add, is some of the concept about return of investment on design.
Yep.
So huge CapEx projects that you both have done, and here in Liverpool they also have done, you typically go and you build, and you apply some of the products and the concepts that you want. We have now today so much data in the industry. It's asking the right questions of the data that you can actually facilitate return of investment, and therefore apply more unique products into that. So for us, this is probably one of the most exciting things in the industry right now from a tech perspective.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the work that we've been doing together, and obviously we'll continue to make movement on that. In regards to membership, if we do get the program right, would that start to offer us opportunities around the 365-day opportunities of our venues? You know, throughout so many of these discussions yesterday, you know, the drive towards pushing our venues to work harder. Our venues have become more expensive to build. They are often being built more in the city centres than ever before, therefore they influence the communities that are around them. We talk a lot about sustainability. Is opening a building 30 days a year sustainable? You know, when we spend that much money, that level of investment, surely these buildings need to be active every single day, every element of them, and almost be treated like real estate. Does memberships offer any opportunities, or not necessarily specifically in your venues, but just generally in the industry? Where do you think that sits, and how does the 365-day opportunity get yielded from that? I'll just add one more point, Nils. And as we're creating, obviously, more premium spaces, they also become less flexible. Therefore, by definition, the traditional market of C&E, you know, our corporate and market in the way we've always gone out and sold, has to transform, because these spaces are no longer able to be utilized in that same way. Surely that is a difficulty, but also offers an opportunity. What do you guys think? Nils?
Yeah, I mean, use of the space on match day is critical, right? You've got to keep your teams involved. And if you have a big venue, you know, Twickenham, and adding on the East Stand, more recently added 4,500 covers of hospitality. That space, and you'll see some of the pictures there, is not designed for theatre style or banqueting rounds or anything along those lines. And it's how you then complement your business with using that asset. You know, if something sits idle 90% of the time, it's going to need more maintenance. It's going to, you know, your staff aren't going to know how to use the area, and using it outside of match day is hugely important. And I know Andy's and Twickenham has looked at, you know, selling memberships for flexible workspace, and, you know, coming out of COVID, is that an opportunity? Have people become more comfortable in their own homes rather than buying that membership? You know, it's a question that will be answered in time. But I think, you know, getting our sales teams now to really think, you know, are the big corporates going to be wanting rooms of 500, or do they want a better experience and better value for their money, and using the space appropriately, you know, selling Christmas parties in 2s and 4s rather than tables of 10, and providing a high street experience with a Christmas feel. And, you know, I know we're going to use some of the spaces you see on the screen for that type of engagement, and create that experience that feels safe and feels manageable, and you're not on a high street that's got uncontrolled people coming into it. And, you know, the more you do that, the more people understand the space, and the more they'll use it for their own, you know, breakouts. And we discussed, you know, has the East Stand being inflexible for conference and events, has that added value to the venue? And absolutely, because it's enabled us to move people from our traditional open boxes that you can have theatre style in, and move the ancillary areas into the East Stand, right? And all of a sudden you've created another space in your traditional spaces to sell to another client, because you're not using it for ancillary catering. So absolutely those spaces are used. It just, you know, you need your culinary team and your sales team particularly to get on board with a different style of sale and service, and it really works. You know, we've doubled our revenue with the East End outside of COVID.
It's a fundamental shift for our industry thinking in that way, isn't it? Because we're used to the match day experience, we're used to the C&E being the, you know, the way we kind of fill our spaces through non-match day. This is really looking at it in a completely different way.
Absolutely, and you know, Compass Group are the caterer at Twickenham, and you know they were one of the first people to use some of our restaurant space in the East End for a non-event day, and the organizer came across to organize her event, and you know, the first thing we said, she said, "Oh, it's coloured tablecloths," and we said, "Well, no, they're the wooden tables you see, and you know that's how it is." And she went, you know, it was alien. And I think a little bit of education and talking through that process and sharing images and how it's going to work. Following that, she loved it, you know, and that's a product you need to really educate the customer on. And it's not just about your sales team, but you know, once you can do it, people will buy it.
And Andy, you've obviously gone under some capital projects yourself. So where does that leave your spaces in terms of obviously flexibility, non-match day opportunities, memberships? Can you give us a bit more information on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've recently opened the Compton and Edgeridge stands, which you'll see on screen at the moment, which are, you know, fabulous new facilities. They're not very flexible, and I think this is where you start to look at, well, you know, what are we building here, and how can we, you know, get the best experience, especially when you're looking at premium environments. And that middle tier on the new stands is all premium. So we've got two, you know, incredible new restaurants. We've collaborated with Tommy Banks, who's the youngest English Michelin star chef, to produce what we believe is the best experience in world cricket. I won't go further and say sport because that's contentious, but it's an incredible environment and view. Looking at the pitch, the facilities have been spec'd out, which means that they just are flexible. You know, we've got heavy furniture in there. We'll do the best we can, and our C&E team are focusing on what can we do as we get used to those spaces. There's huge demand, however, straight away, particularly in the Edgeridge restaurant, which is the collaboration with Tommy, to have private dining experiences. You know, currently it's a purely debenture restaurant, but we need to make that work year round. And so early next year, we're working through it at the moment. We're looking to run a couple of weeks to test the concept of a lunch and dinner 4-day-a-week restaurant with a view to opening that full time and to get a Michelin star. So, you know, that's where we've got to go because it's that good and the quality is that good, and it's going to make it work that much harder for us.
And that again will transform your business model and the opportunities that offers to your venue outside of match days. I mean, you're both obviously working within existing venues that have been upgraded. As we move into the new world and we build new venues, how do we make sure that these thoughts are embedded in what is being developed, what is being designed right from the outset? Because, you know, the traditional way of building stadiums, arenas, and our type of venues hasn't evolved that much. There's still very much closed fortresses that, you know, pretty much keep people in and very much focus on the event day or the match day. How do we change that thinking? Because what it sounds like is that the non-match day opportunity is going to be absolutely critical. And what role does data play in allowing us to create that strategy to actually develop different buildings, you know, that look in things in different way? And maybe it's the ball that is the iconic piece that is there for match day, but all of these rooms should be actually pointing the other way completely. You know, where do we move and how do we use data? How do we use intelligence to drive that potential?
Well, first of all, as I said before, there is already a lot of data for those who invested in the right way of getting the data in the right places and be able to ask the right questions to answer those questions, to answer those challenges. I think it comes back to what are the business objectives and strategies that you want to have in terms of the building. Andy is not here, but I'll mention. So Spurs is a great example of a thinking in a different way and creating capacity in a different way of doing this and utilizing the data before the build was happening, in order to understand some of the concept that influences everything. The key for this conversation that we're having here is around what are the products, so what are the demographics, how many tiers can we have? All of that can now be scientifically tested ahead of time, and then you iterate all the time that you're testing, 4 times, 6 times. We now have in Twickenham and at Lord's a lot of data, granular data, personalized data, in order to activate that and check it in a more specific way, but also communicate with the customers that want the personalization. So suddenly we get a lot of influence through that. How do you use the data? There's loads of different ways. Sometimes there's in-house teams that can do that. Sometimes they get help from outside in order to do those sort of things, but it's absolutely where it needs to go. And also the convergence. So Nils used a couple of examples of BA and others. The high street influenced tremendously. Hotel chains influence tremendously. And again, there's collaboration of data and technologies that we can utilize. So again, we use things in a faster way to do that in order to influence some of those concepts.
So where does the responsibility lie? So is it with the clients, before they hire architects, should they be talking to WeWork directors and member club operators, or where does the responsibility lie? Who's driving the change, or who's going to be responsible for driving this change in this industry, if this is our long-term objective?
Well, look, I think it is the client. You've got to be aware of what's coming down the line, understanding your audiences and your data, and then looking at what you have and the plugs that you need to fill, the holes that you need to plug. Sorry. So you've got essentially, particularly with an old stadium, you've got to look at, well, where's your next area of development? What do you need? For us, we have no street access. We've got security, we've got stewarding challenges for all of these 365-day opportunities that we've got to consider that adds complexity. So, we're looking at what is it that we need to move our venues forward. But it comes down to understanding where those holes are, and data helps you identify those. We have numerous checks and balances. So as an executive team at MCC, we look at, well, what do we believe the right next steps are? And we're 7-8 years into a master plan. We've got plans through to the middle of 2035 or around that area, and but we are changing and we're challenging because the world is changing. So you're constantly under review. We then go through, we present to main committees, we have subcommittees that will help that. We will work with advisors and specialists, and it's always about again trying to stay ahead of the curve, understand what's coming, and being responsive to that.
Yeah, and yesterday I think one of the standout discussions in relevance to our topic here was probably Fulham, and the way they've actually, Rob Pudden, if he's still in the room, mentioned on a number of occasions that as a client, they've actually looked at this as a non-day venue that actually hosts games, rather than a match day venue that has to perform another 330 days. Rob March also, I think, is maybe in the room, maybe not, also looked like they're building an incredible structure that could be something that looked like it is a standalone element that could potentially be quite interesting, especially given the demographics around that racecourse. Again, it's got to be embedded in the DNA, it's got to form part of the data analysis, it's got to form part of the strategy, and it's got to be driven by the clients. Ultimately, it's the clients that are going to push the rest of the consultant team to think outside the box. So that's quite important. You may well be undergoing further developments in the future, because the master plan for Twickenham was always to extend. If you were to do it, what would be the ambition for a new, how are you going to challenge the norm to create something, if you can speak about that?
Yeah, I mean, it is coming down the line, and that's a real challenge, is to, one, not dilute your existing business, but also recognise that the world is changing, and is the B2C market going to grow in the next few years? I believe it is. How do you premiumise more of your seats, but without looking elitist? It's a challenge. And how do you take your local community? Because if you're going to develop, you need your local residents and local councils and boroughs to buy into your development. And I think using membership at slightly thinking outside the box a little bit, and rather than a paid membership that you're part of a club, is bring your community along and provide open access, and your question about, you know, how do you make the building more accessible? It's providing those evenings that are affordable and attractive, and make your venue, you know, indispensable to the community, and them understanding the value you bring to the local area, and the, you know, the shops and the pubs and bars and things in that area is crucial. I think the more you get buy-in, the more people will want to attend, and, you know, word spreads and your data then spreads. And if you can create a platform digitally and you know, websites or whatever that engage with your community, I think that the two lead together, and you create a membership that's part of Twickenham rather than, or, you know, whatever your local area is, rather than a paid membership. I think there's that moving towards it. I think people have almost had enough of, well, I need to pay for everything. You know, I think there's part of this. Social media is a big membership, right?
Yep.
And use it.
Well, we're also seeing, you know, the way demographics and, you know, every generation, the way they consume content has completely changed. Look at Netflix and Amazon Prime. It's all now subscription model. I pay one fee and I consume as much or as little as I want. I'm in charge, not you as the person that's driving the product. It's individual to me. It knows what I like. It customizes for me. You know, we've got to learn from that, because that's an incredible, every single, you know, potential future client of us is consuming media, consuming content in this way today, and that is entertainment content. That's something that's going to come and hit us at some point. We need to be ready for those future trends.
Well,
Roy?
I think it's an excellent point, because these two organizations are already doing that. So there's a level in premium seats and hospitality generally, or personalization, that can be achieved whilst maintaining a really strong structure of delivering, because without the delivery there's nothing, and you actually ruin your brand. Liverpool are also now bought into it, and it will happen here as well, in terms of the access that you have to actually personalize a lot of your experiences when you go in. So the Amazon experience, or the digital experience, which all age groups are very familiar today. So the old days when you said that the benches wouldn't do digital because the age demographic that's nonsense.
Yep.
We are doing that, and the numbers are there. So the return of investment in those platforms, which obviously generate additional, very bespoke data that you can then build on for the next products, for the next partnerships, is there. So I think we are already making those moves. It's how do we take them beyond that? We, as technology providers, are dependent on their strategy. If we can work together, that's amazing. If not, then we wait till things are stabilized, and then we can start catch up. But again, we need to make sure that we're doing something that is being approved and right and tested. We can help, but we can also come after. So it's there.
Should we see if there's any questions from anybody? We're coming to the end of our session. Does anyone have any questions for anyone at the panel?
I'll come to you with the microphone, because obviously with us live streaming this, obviously if you shout it out loud, everyone in the room will be able to hear it, but I don't think they'll pick us up on the live stream.
Hi.
Thank you. Well, Nicola Klecken, I'm a business developer at Xpol, and so you've talked about expanding the hospitality capacity, offering more diversity to the offers, and I was wondering how do you tackle the challenge of expanding those without creating more stress or workload for the operational team on match day? Like, how do you scale the process? Because sometimes when we offer more, that means, we expand, we expand a lot the team, more than the operation asks at first.
Nils, do you want to answer that first?
Yeah, I think, you know, technology plays a massive part in that, and streamlining and let people self-help. You know, I think, as you said, the big platforms are all doing it, and you know, we provide our box holders with a triple jump product through, you know, being able to book their place into the box, order their food, have upgrades, pay for their things, actually invite their guests and track whether their guests are coming. Now that, you know, that takes an administrative headache out of not just us, but the clients, an administrative headache, and that's, I think we've got to expand on that and actually, you know, help that the hospitality industry, you all know, is facing a massive staffing issue, you know, and skilled staff. You know, we might be able to get arms and legs in the building, but I think we're going to have to invest very heavily in training. I think technology has a part to play in that, in providing a solution for solving some of those issues before you get to the venue and when you're at the venue. In-app ordering and two-seat ordering and two-table ordering and whatever, and just to slightly de-skill it for the time being while we're upskilling in the industry. But
yeah, I mean, as an ex-operator, no longer in operations, thankfully, I always found the bigger venues were actually easier to run than the smaller venues, and actually the more inventory you had, generally the higher your headcount in terms of senior managers, the more costs you can sustain. And obviously if we run the venue through more days as well, that allows that consistency of not having a management team that has to turn off and turn on. Do you think that would actually make the operationals easier, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a great operations team. We do, we analyze every product we're developing, and we look at what do we need to do to maintain the quality of the offer that we're selling. So, it's very easy to sell the dream, and then you can destroy it very quickly by under delivering. So, the operational team, got quite a few in here today. They will analyze it, and we talk through and we present the business case, as the full journey, and it has to be that. I think as we look to sort of expand into new offers and opportunities, we need to be cognizant of the fact we can't deliver more with the same team. So we've got to look at how we can make it an efficient operation, and that's where the technologies come in. Working with Triple Jump, it's not just allowed us to focus on the client, which we need to be doing, but it's removed the headaches at the back end. It's the operational efficiencies across the board that means that we're focusing our energies on the customer, which is where we need to be, because they are all members. Yes. They are all, our debenture holders are 20+ year relationships, and we've got opportunities from entry level all the way through to as they mature and their financial capability increases, we've got a product for them, and they're with us for life, and we need to look after them.
Katie, do we have time for one more? No.
One more. We could probably squeeze one more in.
We were promised a hard time by the crowd.
They're going easy on you.
Thank you. This is actually a question about data. So just given some of the big changes that have been made recently, so whether that be sort of Apple's announcement around collecting data, some of the things that are being discussed actually today in government, how do you see, or what do you think the impact of collecting data might be moving forward, and how we're allowed to use it?
It's a very, very important question. So I think GDPR, all privacy issues and all of that are a given. One of the things that we tend to forget is that sometimes generic data has huge amount of value. I've been in the industry since 2009, and I have rarely seen people use generic data that doesn't go into the level of personalized, so one-to-one, this holy grail in marketing, that's one-to-one marketing, it's one-to-one marketing. We don't need to. Also, there is enough within the regulation to allow you to have a personal data based on a variety of different things, just like any other digital platform that you engage with, like Amazon, on different platforms like Google, which we all use, and so on and so forth. But it all falls down to the strategy of the organization. The first question is, why do we need the data, and what do we need it for? And if we look at venues such as yourself in Wembley and so on and so forth, at the data that you have, everything through the whole customer journey, ups and downs, from the ticket purchase to the communication before arriving, during the event, and so on and so forth, there is plenty there to create new products to increase profitability within the regulation. We are, as an organization that looks at data, are heavily investing to understand that constantly together with our customers, who are also verifying that with legal and so on and so forth, every step that we do. I'm not afraid of that. I think it is not even a challenge. It's just understanding and then using what we already have in order to do that. But it is absolutely, just like security and anything else, this is cyber or physical. It's something that we always need to look at as we're developing the strategies and conversations around that.
Thank you, everybody. The panel are here for the rest of the day. If you need to speak to anyone, do please approach them.
Thank you very much.